Welcome to Bump Set Chat, the podcast where volleyball professionals come on and share their stories, experiences, and advice. I am so excited. I have a fellow Canadian, Justin Louis, who plays for Team Canada and playing professionally in Czech Republic. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so glad you're here. So the way we start things off is we do a few random questions. So are you ready?
Sure, let's go.
All right. So first question, what was the most interesting place you've played a match in?
Oh, interesting. Okay, good question. What's coming to mind? So I have two. The first coming to mind is in college, was at BYU, playing in that environment. It was like the craziest thing I've ever been exposed to as sort of a young sort of amateur athlete, I guess.
Yeah.
And playing in front of whatever it is, 7,000, 8,000 screaming fans. You have fans that can almost like touch you on the court, things like that. Very, very crazy. And then professionally, or like with like national team, things like that, playing in the Philippines is always a crazy time. I personally love it because they seem to have a affinity and a love for Canada volleyball. So when we play, they're like screaming and cheering, and like it's so loud in there, which makes the environment and the atmosphere just unreal to play in. So I've always loved playing there. The two times we've been there for VNL. But those are the two places coming to my mind right now.
Excellent. All right, second question. Only a question that Canadians get. Is Tim Hortons overrated?
No.
Okay.
I think, personally, if it was Tim Hortons in the US, I would probably go there. I'm not a big coffee drinker myself. I drink coffee more socially. But if I was going to like get a donut, I'd prefer, I don't really know what Dunkin' or, you know, the offerings of Starbucks and things like that. Starbucks is overpriced, things like that, right? But I would go to Tim Hortons if it was offered in the US or in any other country, over any other sort of cafe environment.
All right.
That's just me personally.
All right, excellent. And final question. So you've been away, whether when you came home from Stanford, what is that favorite home cooked meal you look forward to the most?
Home cooked meal. I'd say my dad is like a big chef. He makes so many different things. I love when he makes beef chow mein with like Chinese broccoli. That's like my favorite meal of his. I also have like a sushi place just down the street from me. I know like all the ladies that work there, so whenever I go there, I'll say hi and like get sushi from them. So typically when I'm home, those are like the two things I look forward to eating.
All right, there we go. Well, hey, welcome to the podcast. And you were just telling me before we started here, you're over in the Czech Republic and your season just started. How's that going so far?
Yeah, it's been good. We have only played two official matches so far. Our first like regular season game, which we won, which is great, and our first like cup game, which also went well. And it's been good. I'm actually here with one of my best friends, Logan House, who is also a Canadian volleyball player. He played on Next Gen team a few times, things like that. So it's been great because I've known him since we were like 12, 13 when we went to camp together. So we've been very close, and having him here is amazing. It's also great because we have an American here, Greg Petty, if you know the name. Yep. So he's also here on the team, and it's been great having those two here, just like foreign players that as well as like all the Czech guys are super wonderful, easy to talk to. We do lots of stuff as a team, which is, I know, not like a normal thing for pro volleyball. So I'm lucky to have a team that really just enjoys being around each other. And then another great thing is that there's also like a women's team here. Like, so the women's version of like Dukla Liberec. And they have a Dutch foreign girl and then two Brazilian foreigners. And we've been hanging out, like us three foreigners on the men's team have been hanging out with those three. And we actually have game night right after this. Like, we have a game night together. So it's nice. Like I feel like it's been like a month and a half here, and I feel like I've already established like kind of a nice home here.
Yeah. Excellent.
So it's been good.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard that from pro players who go over there that it's lonely, especially, you don't have any foreign players there, or, luckily you have a Canadian, you've got other people that are, you guys, instantly just connect, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's been super nice because I know, for me at least, the social connection part is part of the biggest, I don't want to say like obstacle, I guess, like in dealing with pro volleyball is, being here. Like last year I was on a team with a Canadian, which is great again. But I also loved my team in Finland. And here I seem to have lucked out again with having a lot of like good social connections here. But I know in the future, like it's sometimes you get put on a team and it's just with like a random hodgepodge of people
Yeah.
from all across the world that you don't really know if you get along with, and it's tougher. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Excellent. All right. So let's go to the beginning. Where are you from?
I'm from Pickering, Ontario, Canada, which is just outside of Toronto.
Nice. And
Yeah.
when did you first discover volleyball?
I got into it when my sister first started. She started playing club for Durham Attack Volleyball Club. And I started playing in the house league because it just seemed fun and enjoyable. And I would go to my sister's practices, things like that. And then when I was at the house league, the one of the coaches there, or one of the higher ups there, was like, "Oh, you should try out for the rep team." And so I did, and it went very well. So I tried out for a 14U team when I was 12 and was lucky to make it. And then from there, I just remember like every day I'd be, playing volleyball outside or going to practice or trying to go to my sister's practices. Like I just love the sport. And then just have continued playing ever since.
Nice. Yeah. And, I already know this answer, but, for those who
Hmm.
don't listen, where does boys volleyball rank, in Canada, in Toronto? Because here and just to, sort of give you some base here, here
Hmm.
in Connecticut, it's not a very popular sport for the boys from middle school, maybe mid high school. If there's some connection, you'll get the guys playing it, but it's so different back home.
Hmm. Yeah, I'd say it's not a sport that I hear like people just are getting into. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, like we have a young son who's energetic and athletic. Let's put him into volleyball. It's
Yeah.
more like, oh, let's put him into hockey, basketball, soccer, or something else. But I think like throughout maybe it's where I live too, like in a more suburban to
Yeah.
urban area. There was like always middle school teams to play against and play with. I always had a club team for my age that was relatively good, where people were trying out things like that. So for me, my experience was that there is more popularity with the
Yeah.
sport, not to the point of it being like something huge, but
Right.
always like more of a community, more people surrounding the sport. And I think even since I've left or like stopped playing club in 18, which was like 6 years ago or something, it's gotten only bigger. Like I think
Yeah.
more people are playing the sport now. So
Nice. And what club did you play for? The same club as your sister?
yeah, Durham Attack, all 7 years.
Nice. And now, after all these years playing volleyball, what is the hook it has on you?
Hmm. I think for me, it's always been the people. I think we were talking about this earlier, like the
Yeah.
people that are attracted to volleyball, stick around with it and seem to carry it forward as part of their life. Um, the people to me is what makes volleyball so fun, is because one, you're on a team that like playing a sport that really relies on like a huge team dynamic
Mm-hmm.
more than potential other sports that are team oriented, which like soccer, you can kind of take the ball yourself, or basketball as well.
Right.
Whereas volleyball, it's like you need to sort of share the contact and the touches with other players. So it's inherently, I think, more social, at least from my eyes.
Yeah.
And I think just because of that, it draws and seems to draw a lot of people who enjoy that sort of social connection as part of volleyball,
Yeah.
not just like playing the sport itself, but also just like the people who do play the sport seem to be ones who like to connect with one another
Yeah.
and have that social aspect. And so for me, that's always been like the most important part of volleyball, is just the people I'm playing with.
All right. And now, as you're a libero now. Did you start out as a libero, or did you transition over the years?
I played left side in club until I was like 16, 17. I'd still played some left side, but then I transitioned to libero. But it's funny you mention that, because when I first started, I was also playing soccer at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I knew I loved volleyball way more, but I think my mom was worried. She's like, oh, like, isn't volleyball for like taller people? Like my mom and dad are like 5'6" and 5'10"
Yeah.
respectively. Like they're not tall at all. And so she was worried that like, oh, like I would play it for a few years and then kind of like not be able to compete anymore.
Right.
But one of the coaches there was like, oh, your son is for sure going to be a libero. Like he knew when I was like 12 or
Yeah.
something, that I was going to be a libero, just because he could like tell. Um, and so I think I was kind of like put into that position like immediately. So I just focused a lot on like defense and ball control stuff because I was always shorter than people in
Yeah.
my year typically. And then when I was 15 playing for Team Ontario for my first year, that's when I actually played Libero for the first time officially.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of was like a natural fit, I guess.
Nice. And
Yeah.
there's something about a libero. My daughter's a libero, and there's
Oh,
a
nice.
spirit. There's like just, you just want to chase down everything, and talking to
Mhm,
like Tim McIntosh and Mason and Eric, there's just,
mhm.
that spirit is there. How would you describe the spirit of a libero?
I'd say I think especially for more like elite liberos, like as you get older and older, um, there's more of like an obsessiveness with volleyball, which is funny because I actually think I have grown less obsessed with volleyball. But I think the liberos, like you look at all the top liberos in the world, like Eric Shoja being one of them,
Yeah.
um, they're just like so obsessed with volleyball. Like they think about volleyball, talk about it, like watch it all the time, want to play it. Like it's everything is surrounded by volleyball. Which is what makes them so good is because they're, I don't know, they're just able to be consumed by the game. Because libero can sometimes be like a boring position, I guess. Like
Hmm.
if you're only doing two skills pretty much the whole time, it's like you kind of have to like find the joy in other things or
Yeah.
be able to be obsessed with volleyball, like I think most liberos are. And I think at like younger ages, I think something about just like a determination to dig every ball and
Right.
like be relentless on defense. I think that's what characterizes like when you watch like some random kid at a club tournament, you're
Yeah.
like, damn, that kid's good because you can just see them like wanting to chase down every ball and stuff.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's inherent in libero for sure.
All right, excellent. So now you finished, finished high school and college, or as we in Canada call it, university or college was
Mhm.
the next. You ended up in Stanford. How did what made you pick there?
That was kind of a stroke of luck, but also just like good persistence, I think. Um, I remember wanting to go to Stanford when I watched like a YouTube video of the men's team playing when I was like 15 or something. And
Yeah.
I was actually watching it with like a bunch of teammates and stuff. I was like, whoa, like this is crazy. This is so cool. And I remember that day or that night going to look at the roster and being like, oh, like at the point I get to graduate high school, they'll be like graduating their libero. So it's like maybe I can like come in at the time when he's leaving.
Mm-hmm.
So like that was like lucky that I was like, oh, like this could actually work out. So I remember me and my dad specifically got super serious about like contacting US universities because we were like, oh, we can potentially make this a thing, like going to the US and playing and getting scholarship or whatever.
Yeah.
And Stanford was always the school that I was like, man, if I got that school, I'm in. Like that's
Yeah.
it for me. And so I reached out to them among other schools, but every year from when I was like 16, 17, 18, and then finally in like when I was in the summer of 17 going into my last year of high school, I was playing at a tournament in Florida. And I had no idea there'd be like a Stanford scout there, but Ken Shibuya, the assistant coach at the time, was there, saw me play, and he's like, "Oh, we've actually been getting all of your emails, all of your video that you've been sending us, and we are super interested. We just watched you play this tournament. You look great. Come for a visit."
Oh wow.
And it turned out, yeah, it worked out perfectly. And it turned out that I was the only one they were recruiting that year. So they were just looking for libero, which was perfect for me.
Yeah.
And then I went on a visit, enjoyed my time. Obviously, it was Stanford, so I was like amazed by everything. And then yeah, got in and signed the deal. So it was great.
Oh, that's fantastic. And not to mention some of the legends that have played at Stanford. We were talked earlier about
Yeah.
Eric, his brother Kavika played there.
Mhm.
What was that first year like for you?
It was definitely a like interesting transition time. Um, in terms of academics, I didn't feel like I was like too overwhelmed or anything, but it was more just like going from this community of volleyball people and friends that I had back
Hmm.
home in like the Toronto area to now going to a completely new school, don't know any
New
of the volleyball people
country?
there, new country, yeah, new way of doing things. Didn't know, like, didn't have any friends. Basically, had to like restart entirely in
Yeah.
this new area, which I kind of was like excited for as well. So it wasn't like inherently a bad thing. But yeah, I was also the only freshman on my team.
Oh wow.
So the coach was like, yeah, because they only recruited me. So the coach was like, let's just assimilate him. I got really close with the team, especially a lot of the older guys like Kyle D'Agostino,
Yeah.
who's like the US Libero. He was great because I was like playing under him and he was able to like kind of
Oh,
help me
shoot.
and mentor me, so to speak. And just being able to like kind of quickly get in within the college team and like the college level was actually great for me because then I was like immediately just kind of like no longer this kid in club in high school, but now fully in college.
Right.
So I'd say like it was a bit tough at first, but ultimately like I was having so much fun that I just like, I don't know, everything kind of transitioned pretty
Nice.
smoothly for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that adjustment from club to playing college has got to be such a huge step because, a club, you're playing with that age group, 18, 17, 16s.
Hmm.
You're coming into college now. Now here you're an 18-year-old playing with 21s, 22s, stronger, hitting harder. That adjustment must have been, yeah, how hard was that? Or was it just, a gradual, you got used to the speed and the tempo?
Yeah. I think it was just gradually got used to the speed and tempo.
Yeah.
I think I became exposed to the other aspects of sport that I hadn't really thought of when I was in club. So in club, like I was focused whatever on like certain skills, technical elements, things like that.
Yeah.
But in college, I was pushed more to be like, oh, you also have to be some sort of like leader on the court or like organizer. You also have to be sort of like an emotional handler of
Yeah.
people, working with different teammates in
Mm-hmm.
different contexts, things like that. You also have to be physically stronger. You also have to perform your skills at like a more consistent rate. So there's a
Yeah.
mental aspect to it too. There was just other things that I was like, oh, like this is more what college is like. It's not like suddenly it's like there's this huge drop from in terms of technical ability from college to club. It's
Right.
like there's this other aspects that you need to refine as part of being an athlete in
Yeah.
college, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. And now, if you could go back to that freshman Justin with that advice, what
Mhm.
advice would you have for him?
The biggest thing for me that I think I would give advice for myself and for others is to sort of like stay open to everything. Because I think maybe in high school in a club or whatever provincial team you've been before, you've done things a certain way.
Yeah.
And then college comes and it's a dramatically different game potentially. And that's when you may need to change some things, especially some fundamental things that you've grown up doing your entire life
Yeah.
as it relates to your sport. So I think being sort of open to all this different feedback and taking it in, uh, not as like an ego thing, like, oh, I'm bad or I'm suck or
Right.
oh, I shouldn't do this. It's like taking it in, truly understanding like how can I make these changes to make myself better.
Yeah.
I think would go a long way, especially improving that first year. It's just taking in all that information, kind of like be a sponge for it
Yeah.
and making those changes as you see necessary.
All right. Excellent. And now, during your time there, Stanford, what were some of the highlights that stick out for you?
Um, Man, like I met my best friends there. Yeah, like by far, like that was the most important thing for me is again, like the people I met and the connections I made, not just within my team, which I have like so many. I'm so grateful for all my teammates that I've had because they've actually been wonderful, but also just like outside of volleyball, all the people I met there. So yeah, that was like a huge thing that I'm very, very grateful for. Another thing too is actually like my coaching staff. Um, we never really won a national championship or weren't like a top four team throughout my time there. But I am grateful because I think they cultivated a really good like holistic experience
Mm-hmm.
for the athlete, like not just um, like being a competitive team on the court and like developing volleyball wise, but also just like allowing me to flourish in other aspects of my life and kind of being there to support me in those kind of ways.
Yeah.
Um, and then also, I think for me, like academics was important.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, yes.
I think Stanford was great in fostering sort of like an intellectual curiosity for all these different things in life.
Yeah.
I don't know if I went to just hearing from uh, teammates who went to Canadian universities, I don't think I would have gotten the same, maybe not level of education, but style of education
Yeah.
that Stanford provided that allowed me to explore these different things and be curious and go and look into and get further depth in. So yeah, I'm grateful for all those things and many more.
Yeah. During the year when you guys played, were there any dates circled on the calendar? Like, oh man, this is the match we can't wait to get in, or was just every match was just you guys got up for it?
Um, Trying to think. No, I don't really remember anything. Like it was always again fun to go to BYU to play
Yeah.
there, or well, playing at home obviously was super electric, being in front of your fans, friends, things like that. And then playing in Hawaii, got to do that once, was cool. Um, but yeah, I'd say just when it came down to like conference playoffs is when, things really mattered.
Yeah.
And I was lucky in my last like 2 or 3 years for it. Like we seemed to like shine at that time. Like we would kind of come from down below and be lower ranked and then just like upset people. And it
Yeah.
was great.
Nice. And, for that group of for that next group of seniors that are going to be leading the team, for this upcoming season, any advice for them
Mhm.
after, you've gone through a couple of years or, playing pro, Olympics, a little older, any advice for that, team to that next year's team?
I never really thought about that. Yeah, I guess one thing that's coming to mind is like give all that you can in whatever moment you're presented with,
Yeah.
whether it's like, developing relationships with the freshmen or being at practice when you don't really want to be there or, going through a grueling workout or what have you. I'd say not that I wish I could do it differently, but I think I would have told myself in that senior year or
Yeah.
in those final years, like really just like soak it all in, like the joy, the pain, the blood, sweat, and tears, but also just like all the little things that make like your college experience or college volleyball experience like unique.
Yeah.
Really just like be present with them, soak them all in, and just enjoy it as much as possible.
Nice.
Yeah.
And now also while you were at Stanford, you had a big sort of, moment. You wrote a certain letter
Mhm.
to your teammates. How, you want to talk about that experience?
Yeah, so my freshman year, I'd come in thinking I was like bisexual or like trying out my sexuality, kind of like experimenting, learning about it.
Yeah.
I had talked to my friends who weren't on the team, like just like close friends I'd made throughout that year about it, and talked more about it in second year with those people and realized that I was gay and did and liked and was attracted to men. And so I think I kind of came to that understanding in the middle of my second year
Yeah.
and truly like cemented it, I guess, like kind of accepted it fully. And then it was a matter of just like telling people like parents, other friends back home, teammates, for example. But then COVID happened and we all got sent home. And so when we did get sent home, we all decided as a team to sort of like one person a week would write like an email newsletter basically for
Yeah.
all of us to be like, oh, here's what I'm doing, things that I've been having fun with or things that I've struggled with, whatever. Like we're all there as a team.
Yeah.
And for mine, I basically wrote a letter saying like, I'm gay. I want to let you guys know this. It was a very, very big moment for me,
Oh,
like
I
a huge
bet.
moment of vulnerability. Yeah.
Difficult, just like, oh my God, what are they all going to think? And
Exactly. Yeah. And so I sent it and just like walked away from my computer and decided to like go leave it, kind of like process it for a few hours. And then I came back to see my phone and it just messages from teammates being like, we love you, we support you, thank you for sharing, like you're so brave for that,
yeah,
things like that. And so that was really like touching to see.
right,
Um, and it kind of was there's like a period where I wasn't actually with them because we were all at home during COVID,
right.
but I would like talk to different people and kind of get that comfort from them and
Yeah,
being able to talk about it now and openly. Um, and then yeah, from then on, it was like I felt like just closer with my teammates because of
nice.
that. So it was wonderful.
Now, do you think if COVID didn't happen, you'd be doing the same thing, or do you think would have been different?
I probably would have. I think my timeline might have been different. Like it was like in the middle of season, so I was like, I don't know. I guess I was like realizing it was true, but then part of you is also like, oh, like I can just wait on this. Um, like I don't need to like rush this or whatever. Maybe I would have told like one teammate or
Yeah,
something and slowly, you know what I mean? Like I would have done it differently probably. But I think I reached a point where I was so like needing to get it out,
it was just
maybe
an
just like feeling
internal
that
like
own.
Like a
yeah,
weight.
this like discomfort inside of me,
Yeah.
that I just needed to relinquish and just tell people about. And so I think that's why I did it as I did, just telling everyone at once, because I just needed to like expel it basically.
Yeah.
Versus I think the process might have been a bit different if I
Yeah.
was actually in person with them. But I think it would have happened around the same
All
time because
right.
I was just at that point. Yeah.
And then, that night where you're like, did you just feel like, like a weight had been lifted off your shoulders, or you just like, all right, this is good, ready to go?
No, it definitely took like, I think there's, for me at least, there was like a moment of like yes, like this weight was lifted off, like, okay, you let it go. But there's still like, you have the thoughts running through your head. There's still sort of this like, um, this anxiety that kind of needs to like calm itself down
Yeah.
because you're so like worked up about this. And I think it's like you need time for like adaptation to set in. Like it's just like you tell people it's like, okay, what I need time to like really talk about it, really feel comfortable, like talking about, even just like talking about like, oh, I went on a date with a guy. Like
Yeah.
that's immediately like I can't just do that. Like I need to feel comfortable doing that because I need
Right.
time for it to be processed by everyone.
Yeah.
So immediately, yes, there was some relief, but there was also a period where it's like I need to internally feel comfortable talking about
Yeah.
these things with teammates. So yeah.
Gotcha. All right. And now, college is gone. What do you miss most about those college days?
Oh man, I will tell you, like, there's one thing I miss about Stanford, which is being able to ride my bike, um, just in like the California sunset.
Yeah.
That's like, because Stanford's a pretty big campus,
Mm-hmm.
and in the last like 2 years, I would live like on one side of the campus, while like the locker room and the athletic centers and everything were on the other side. So I'd always bike through campus,
Yeah.
and that honestly is like one of the things I miss most about Stanford, is just being able to have that bike ride in nature to myself, like just like soaking up everything and just feeling like so tremendously like joyful, I
Yeah.
guess. But again, like I miss being able to play volleyball with teammates who I really do love and care
Mm-hmm.
about. Versus here, it's like I have grown connections with them, but it's a different
It's
kind
a
of feeling
job.
with professional. Exactly, it's a job.
Yeah.
I miss being able to like, go to locker room, talk to all my friends, teammates, being able, we had this thing called athlete dining where athletes would get food, being able to sit there, talk with like the beach volleyball girls, the
Yeah.
women's team, like other sports. Like I was really good friends with tennis, like things like that. Um, so it's all those little things, but
Yeah.
I think I just miss the people the most.
Yeah.
That's truly it.
The other players that I've had on who are now moved into the pro careers, they say they miss the most of that locker room. That was the thing that
Hmm.
seems to be the most popular thing that they miss the most. Just hanging out, after class, before practice, and just hanging out with your, like you said, your friends, the people that you love.
Yeah. Yeah. It's those little moments of just like being around the people that you love and care about and
Yeah.
want to spend time with. Yeah.
Excellent. And now, after college, was pro always on the roadmap for you, or what was the roadmap to playing in Europe?
Yeah. So I have a weird kind of relationship with it because so in my, what is it? So I did 5 years at Stanford, um, because of like my redshirt slash
Yeah.
COVID year, whatever. But in my fourth year, I had started like, I don't know, doing things outside of volleyball. So I
Mm-hmm.
was part of a startup. I was interested more in like working or like other things basically that
Yeah.
weren't volleyball related. And so I saw myself being like, oh, maybe I'll do like 1 year of pro. I don't know, go on to do something else. In my last year, I was like a teaching assistant and research assistant with my professor for one of my classes, things like that. Like I was getting interested in other things as well that weren't volleyball related.
Yeah.
And so I had been talking with teammates a lot about this, where I saw myself maybe doing one more year of like national team or 1 year of pro, and then kind of trying it out, seeing how it is. And then, if I make the Olympics or like finish out the quad, basically,
Yeah.
like we'll see how things go from there. But I think after last year in Finland, I had a big like transitionary period where things, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like I was like overwhelmed by all these things. And then once I was in Finland, I kind of settled
Mm-hmm.
into the professional lifestyle, and I really enjoyed my time there. And we were able to qualify for Olympics as well. So I played with national team for the summer, decided I was going to get another professional contract, And in that time, like since basically 2023, like last year, I've just found more of like a joy and a love for volleyball again, where it's not
Nice.
just like, oh, like it's fun to play it. Like it's like I really just that's like what I want to do again is like just play with my teammates.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think if I'm able to continue with this like rekindling or refound love for volleyball and enjoying the professional lifestyle still, I will continue. But for me, I take it more like year by
Yeah.
year, every 2 years, kind of like making sure like, yes, this is what I want to do versus being like, oh no, maybe it's time that I want to do something else.
Yeah. All right.
So,
Two things off that. First, I didn't even ask you, what
mhm.
was your major at Stanford?
Yeah, I did this thing. It's called management science engineering, which is basically like I don't know, like a business engineering degree,
Okay.
kind of like put into like industrial engineering,
Yep.
basically. I did my bachelor's in that, minor in data science, and then master's in the same engineering program, but like a different concentration. It
Yep.
was more, I don't know, like businessy, I guess, the master's
Yep.
than
The
the
engineering
undergrad was
piece of
more
it.
like engineering.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. And then, so now your first year in playing pro, over in Finland, what was that like,
Mhm.
coming from college, balancing school and and playing, and now your thing is to play professional volleyball. What do you do with that extra time, or was there extra time because you spent a lot of it, training?
Yeah, that I yeah, there's a lot of extra time that I was not accustomed to because in college it was like I was either doing schoolwork,
Hmm.
playing volleyball, or spending time with people, or like studying, reading, whatever, right? Like
Right.
I was always doing something. Whereas as soon as I got to Finland and in that first month there, it's like I had so much time. I was just playing volleyball and I was like, what else do I do with my time?
Right.
So I'm a big reader, spend a lot of time reading. I actually like wrote half a transcript for a book basically because I have enjoyed writing and
Yeah.
just doing that on my own. Um, I've gotten a lot more into uh, like spirituality stuff and like meditating
Yeah.
and yoga, things like that. And now here in Czech Republic, I do a lot of that too, like all the stuff I just described.
Yeah.
And then also I just like kind of like sink into doing nothingness, like going for walks in nature by myself, or
Yeah.
even just like spending time cooking and baking new things. Like I just made like a no sugar banana bread, like
Oh,
just
shoot.
trying new things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like you spend your time in ways that are meaningful to you,
Yeah.
however you want to do it. And for me, I realized like, oh, I don't always have to be doing something that is like productive, like schoolwork or
Yeah.
whatever. Like I can like spend the time just like doing nothing.
Right.
And
It's
it's been
okay.
nice. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Nice.
okay to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, what was, that first year in Finland, what was the toughest thing, over there?
The toughest thing, honestly, was the volleyball. I love my teammates and I had a good coach, but we were not a very good team. We were
Hmm.
like the worst team in
Oh,
Finland.
shoot.
And the volleyball was a sick because I went from national team and then 3 days later I was in Finland.
Yeah.
And so the drop was significant.
Yeah.
And so it was hard to like re-motivate myself for volleyball every day.
Yeah.
When the volleyball is like different than you had pictured it. Um, and so yeah, that was honestly the hardest part. I think
Okay.
because I had friends there, like I was rooming with a Canadian guy and I enjoyed hanging out with my team and doing stuff with my team. Like I think socially, like it was nice.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like too lonely or I don't know, ostracized or
Yeah.
anything. And yeah, the cold sucks. It definitely sucked in Finland. But again, it wasn't like that. I didn't really feel like unhappy or depressed because of that or
Yeah.
anything. It was just like, oh, the weather is like cold today. It's
Oh, that's right. Because
yeah,
you missed 4 years of cold in Toronto, and so
yeah,
yeah, so
yeah.
you got used to nice weather.
Yeah, yeah. And then going to that, I was like, oh, okay, we have to deal with the cold again.
Yeah. And now, for any advice for those college kids that will be playing pro next year, some tips or some
Mhm.
just general advice to what they, really should look out for, be ready for.
Yes, I'd say the first thing I always now going forward, I'm like, okay, I'm ready for it. Is for me, there was like a month, like 30 days of transition. So, and it even happened this year. when I left national team and I had a break at home and then I went to Czech, um, I needed like 30 days, basically from I got there like middle of August until probably middle of September was I needed time to like, kind of assimilate with this new team, this new routine,
Yeah.
this new way of living, like of not, always playing volleyball or being around people that I know with friends and family, whatever, or like being in Canada, right? It's
Yeah.
very different than being at home. Just like 30 days, if you give yourself 30 days to just like figure things out, um, I think you'll kind of like once you kind of figure things out, then everything, at least for me, has become easier after those 30 days. Like once you get past that sort of transitionary period,
Yeah.
it becomes a lot easier. And then the second thing is um, kind of find ways to experience uh, like your own personal joy and happiness
Yeah.
in like the day-to-day parts of your lives, even if it may not be the situation you want. Like if you're in some random country with people you don't really know, it's like maybe try and like go on a date or like yeah, go enjoy whatever nature that you've kind of been given, or go explore the city or do something to like make sure you're still enjoying other parts of your life
Right.
that are not just like the volleyball and like your teammates. Like there's other things that you need to kind of take care of yourself for.
All right. And now, from a volleyball standpoint, do you have any pregame rituals, music lists you do before game? Eat a certain
Um,
meal, take a nap?
yes, I often take a nap. Um, when depending on how when we play, like the time length for that nap changes. Um, I don't really have certain foods I eat, um, or music. I kind of just put whatever I like want to put on.
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying to think. I like to just like kind of like close myself off for a second. And I write reminders on my phone day of game to like I know I play best when I'm like flowy and like having fun and
Yeah.
being energetic and like not thinking about anything really, just like enjoying myself.
Yeah.
So I really kind of like look at those reminders and write things down like, okay, like this is how you want this day to go, basically, or this night to go as you
Yeah.
play this game. Remember that as you're playing it.
All right.
Um, but yeah, and then when I'm on the court, I try and just like I remember, especially for like national team stuff, I always try and like get myself pumped in those first few points, like just like kind of like get the adrenaline going, so I can be more like in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of let my whatever, like my intuition, instincts, just kind of take over.
Yeah.
But I always like to just kind of like pump myself up a little bit, and then just kind of post into the rest of the
All
game.
right. And now, for those sneakerheads out there, do you like to play in a certain pair of shoes, or whatever works?
I I'm so bad at that. I uh I have zero preference for like clothes, shoes,
Yeah.
anything like that. I play with shoes that are just given to me. If they're free, then I'll
Yeah.
play with them because
Nice.
I don't really care. Yeah. So I just play with them as that I've been given,
Yeah.
basically.
All right.
Yeah, and that's it.
And now, let's talk about the national team, your
Mhm.
experience there. So when did you first start popping up on the national team radar?
Um, I was invited to try out when I was like 16 or something for like the junior national team. It was kind of like a random long shot. I was like Ontario has this thing called the Quest for Gold where it like nominates athletes that they see as like future or like current, international
Yeah.
playing or international level players, sorry. And so I got that thing or award when I was 16 and then was invited to like the junior national team tryouts where people were like 18, 19, 20 or something. It
Oh,
was
wow.
crazy for me. Yeah, no, I was like so frightened that entire time. I didn't make it. I was like not good. But I think I remember in my like post like the exit interview or the post tryout meeting,
Mm-hmm.
I was talking with the director of Volleyball Canada and like the coach, and they were like, "Oh, you're a very solid player. I'm happy you tried out. Please come back next year when it's closer to your age group.
Right.
Um, like we have, better hopes for you then." And I was like, "Great." So I went back next year, played on the junior national team when I was like 17, or I made it when I was 18 or something. And then from there, I've been playing national team every summer. So played 2 years junior national team, 2 years of the B team or the next gen team,
Yeah.
and then started with the A team when 22. So 2022 is when I started.
All right. Now, do you remember
Yeah.
when you got the call, when you got up to the A team, where you were when you said, "Hey, Justin, you're coming up here and you're starting"?
Yes, yeah. That was the first year Josephson was there. So that was 2022. And I think that year it was like after the Olympic year in Tokyo, and a lot of players were tired. And I think Blair Ban, the current libero at that time, had some sort of injury or something. And so he was like, okay, we're gonna start bringing up like the younger talent. And so I remember Josephson called me when I was at Stanford, and he basically just told me, he's like, we have intentions for you to play with this VNL roster. He's like, I don't know how much you'll play or if you'll play at all, but like we have intentions for you to start like training, and we'd like you to come here after you're done at Stanford. And I was like, okay, great. And then I went and got to start playing with the VNL team. I was like terrible when I first started.
Oh
Like it
no.
was actually like, no, yeah, it was like embarrassing, really, but it was super bad. But then I got more used to like playing at that level and
Yeah.
then at that skill. By the end of summer, I was in a better spot. But yeah, that's kind of how I
All
got
right.
onto the national A team.
And how about that moment where you got your jersey and you saw your last name on it, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I actually remember it more for the Olympics this year
Yeah.
because we saw the new jerseys and they had like the Olympic logo. And for me, that was kind of like an oh shit, like, yeah, like you've just realized your dreams as a kid from when you were whatever, like starting volleyball at
Right.
12, 13, and you were watching the London Olympics. And now you're playing in the 2024 Olympics. Like, I was like, that is to me that was just unreal.
Yeah.
That was I still kind of remember looking at those jerseys for the first time. I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And now,
Yeah.
did you know when did you, or because you were on the A team, was it an automatic that you were going to Paris, or was there some meeting after? Okay, who's on the list?
Yeah, it was for me, I think I was in a maybe different position because there was initially me and the other libero Landon Curry who were and are competing for the spot on the national A team. Um, and we were both there in the first VNL for Turkey. I was playing for basically the entirety of it, but then the second VNL, he was feeling something in his groin or his quad, and he had a small injury. So then he wasn't there as part of the Ottawa VNL, and then I was the like sole libero with the backup libero being like Riley Barnes for most of it.
Yeah.
Um, and I played the entire time there, and I was doing well. Got to go play in the Philippines. So I think when I knew I was, I don't know, playing the entire VNL, I kind of
Yeah.
figured I was like, okay, I guess I'm the libero. Like it would be super weird if they just took someone else.
Right.
But I think for other people, it was we all got contacted in our break after VNL, like who made it, who didn't. I
Yeah.
think the coach contacted each person individually to tell them because they were still making decisions at that
Yeah.
time. But yeah, I was notified and just told like you're on the team. Other players maybe got like longer calls or something. I have no
Yeah.
idea. But yeah, that's when everyone found out basically.
Who was your first call once you found out?
I was at home, so
Oh,
I
okay.
told my parents immediately. I shared the news with my friends. Um, we were not supposed to tell anyone, so I just told everyone like, "Shh, don't tell anyone." But it's not like they're part of the volleyball world anyway.
Right.
So, um, but basically, yeah, just my family. I don't even remember if we did anything big. I think we just like went out for dinner or
Yeah.
something. But it was kind of like nice to at that time kind of confirm what I thought was true after
Yeah.
VNL being like, I think I'm going to be the libero, and then confirm it with the Olympics.
Yeah.
So that was like amazing.
Excellent.
And then when you get back into training, it's like you're with your Olympic squad now, and that feels like surreal.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure. And now, jumping back to VNL. So, um,
Mhm.
my daughter and I caught the VNLs in Ottawa when you guys were up there. What an
Nice.
amazing experience that is from a fan standpoint. And then I've had a couple of the guys on, like Mike Marshman and Cody Kessel and others. They talk about what a fantastic job VNL does with the whole presentation and taking care of the athletes. What was your experience?
Yeah, I well, first off, for Ottawa, amazing job, I think. Like I don't even know, like I think maybe 7,000, 8,000 people. I forget how many people were there, especially for the US game. but we get like tons of fans, which is crazy because when you think about like Canada volleyball, like even where it was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it's like to think now it's like we're selling out like the TD
Right.
arena. Like that's like insane to me that so many people are not even just like volleyball people, but just random people are like, oh, I want to come watch this volleyball event.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy to me that so many people came and watched and supported. So yeah, from a fan standpoint, it seems like it was great. So I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear that it was. And then yeah, VNL pretty much take care of everything. We get put in a hotel in Ottawa. It's in downtown Ottawa. They give us, breakfast, lunch, dinner, whenever we want. The food sometimes is but for the
Yeah.
most part, it's okay. It's like pretty good. And they, do everything in terms of transportation, taking care of the athletes. Yeah, so they really just kind of work out everything, and you go there and play and hopefully win, and
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the one thing I found interesting was before the game, sort of at the referee stand, everyone's got their bands and they're stretching. It's like a little social thing from both teams. Everyone's at the stand, just shooting the shit and
Yes.
whatnot. I thought that was very cool
Yeah.
to see.
Yeah, I think a lot of the older players who played pro and with people from other countries, they just kind of like hang out, catch up, talk. Even when I'm at the hotel, like I remember in Ottawa, actually, I went and talked to Kyle for like an hour, got like coffee with him, just
Yeah.
said, hey, how you doing? Like, tell me what's going on. You'll see people like I will talk to Eric randomly, like in the elevator, or like Matt Anderson or something,
Yeah.
like people who I have like recognized and stuff. So it's a very sort of like communal environment where
Yeah.
we're all living in the same hotel and we can all just like talk or chat or whatever
Yeah.
with each other.
Yeah, it was so
Yeah.
good to have the VNLs on, in Canada. And like I was talking to Matt Anderson, it was nice because he's from New York and he was able to bring his family up and they were able to see him there. And it was such a cool experience. And then let's not forget the fact that you guys played USA in Ottawa and you guys came out on top. How was that?
Yes, that was the craziest thing. So it's actually funny. Did you watch all the VNL games
Yes.
or just yes? Okay. So I don't know if you remember, but in the Argentina game, there was a time where I had to like jump over those like LED stands in the
Yeah.
back. And I like kind of tripped and got my foot caught as I was jumping to get a ball. And my foot like smashed against that LED sign.
Oh,
It's like not collapsible. It's like basically like there's like metal pipes behind it.
right.
Like it's
Yeah.
like completely like it's like a brick wall basically. And so my foot got completely smashed and bruised and I was like limping on the court. So when I was going to the US game, I was like, well, frick, like this is gonna be tough.
Yeah.
But our team, like everyone just kind of showed up. The fans showed up for us. Like that was the most electric feeling ever. I remember just after the game feeling like the adrenaline just like coursing through my body, even as we just finished.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just a wonderful day for Canada.
Oh, it was. Yeah. That whole experience was just so good to see that caliber of volleyball, in our backyard. It was
Yeah.
amazing. And hopefully next year Ottawa gets it again or, Toronto.
I honestly, I think from what I heard, I think it'll be in VNL Ottawa again.
Yeah.
And I think they like having it there because for certain countries, like when we played in Turkey, they had so many fans in Turkey.
Right.
But at the other games, there weren't as many fans, like when Turkey wasn't playing.
Yeah.
Whereas Ottawa VNL, people really just love watching volleyball, not just Canada, but like
Right.
volleyball in general. Like when you go to like a Canada game, it's obviously super full. But if you go to a US game or like a France game, like
Argentina,
there's still
it's
tons. Exactly. There's still tons of fans there.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they, like from my understanding, it's why they love putting it in Ottawa VNL there is because we get fans for so many different games.
Well, and you add into the mixture, and whether it's Toronto or Ottawa, Canada's just so diverse. You've got your pockets of the Greek community, you've got the, Argentina. You have it's just everybody's there, and you see flags from everywhere, and it's such a great thing about Canada.
Yeah, I remember when we lost, there was like actually a surprisingly large number of Serbia fans who I assumed were Canadians or Serbians living in Canada or something, like descendants or whatever, that were cheering for Serbia, rightly so. And it was so funny because I was like, oh, look at like there's like 1,000 Serbia fans just in Ottawa VNL. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, on your team, the team that, at the VNLs or in, when you guys went to Paris, who was the joker? Who was the guy that could crack the tension when it needed to be done?
Oh, Lucas vanberkle.
You didn't have us to hesitate on that. That just came out so
Yeah,
quickly.
he's well, at least for me, he's just got that like kind of fun, playful, but like dad humor because
Yeah.
he's a dad, and he was the oldest guy on our team. But man, he just, especially for me, he can just make me laugh at any time. He'll just say or do anything, and I think it's hilarious. Another guy, Riley's pretty funny. Um, but yeah, mainly Lucas for me was like the main guy who could just like randomly crack a joke, and I would laugh like
Yeah.
almost every time.
Oh,
Yeah.
excellent. Now, I've had a couple of the guys on who went to Hawaii and they had an exhibition tour over in Japan. And I've heard this from other
Mhm.
players that when you play other countries, there's different styles of volleyball they play, where like the US and Canada is sort of ground and pound. When you play Japan, it's more technical and fast. What's your take or opinion on the different styles you've seen?
Yes. So yeah, I'd say US very physical. Canada too. Japan super agile, super quick, very smart, low error, like just does everything super well. They're also a bit shorter, so they kind of have to
Yeah.
compete, but they're incredible, really incredible. Um, France is kind of like that, like well, why they're the Olympic champions because they're kind of like that beautiful mix. They're both extremely talented volleyball players. Like
Yeah.
they can do just extraordinary things on the court and like not even have to think twice about it. They just have that volleyball sort of sense and intuition with what they're doing. But they also have the more physical attributes. They have like an insane defense too. Yeah, so there's definitely different styles. There isn't one that's best,
Yeah.
but yeah, playing against them is I love just like watching and scouting too, because you get exposed to like, oh, this team, like we're going to play Cuba one day, who's like massive physical, hits the crap out of the ball
Right.
harder than anyone, and like bomb serves, and but has like a higher set, like slower offense, things like that. Whereas the next day we play Japan, it's like, oh, suddenly we need to do everything different with our defense because they're super quick, will
Yeah.
be smart, throwing balls, doing whatever, like not making errors. So yeah, it's cool that way.
Excellent. And now, when you're playing, if you have a couple of bad plays, what do you do to reset yourself? What's your sort of mantra that you do?
Yeah, I have cues. Typically my resets come from serve receive. I think defense, I sometimes need like someone to be like, oh, maybe you need to stand deeper or whatever, or like, oh, just reminder about the tip or something, right? Like I'm not needing often or almost ever like cues on defense because normally those just come like more naturally to me.
Yeah.
But for serve receive specifically is when I need to kind of reset your mind because that's like an entirely mental thing. And so this summer, I actually went through different cues, but when I was at the Olympics, this was my best cue for like everything was to be just like super loose. Um, I think if I was like trying too hard to be like technical or like overly like specific with my movements,
Hmm.
when you're in game and it's just like kind of split second reactions, you often are making like mistakes that maybe you shouldn't be making.
Yeah.
But I think when I'm loose, I can just allow my body to move and react without thinking about making the move. I just kind of do it
Yeah.
because, I trust my skill, I trust my instincts, things like that. And so, yeah, that was a huge one for the Olympics was playing sort of loose, flowy. And I think that's one that I'm going to continue using. I have other like specific cues for
Yeah.
technical elements, but that was sort of like the main one in terms of just like resetting myself.
All right. And now,
Yeah.
when it comes to Paris, what were some of the non-volleyball highlights for you for Paris? There must have been a ton. Like it's just overwhelming, probably.
Yeah. I may be a little weird with this. I don't really watch sports, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I don't even watch volleyball all that much. So when I see like I saw like Giannis, Antetokounmpo, like Rafael Nadal, like all these, amazing athletes, Coco Gauff one time like walked by me, like all these whatever athletes, like amazing athletes. I'm not as like oh my
Starstrucker.
God, like I
Yeah.
need to get a picture, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
like that's really cool, but like I don't know, it's not like my like thing, I guess.
Yeah.
To me, I actually loved things that were like maybe not part of the Olympics. Like one was going to the beach volleyball game,
Yeah.
the in
Underneath
that
the Eiffel
venue.
Tower. Yeah.
Really cool. Yeah, super cool. But then also like one of my best friends, Sean, was there with his girlfriend. I got to go like hang out with them once. So that was really cool. I got to go spend time with my family and my godparents at the Canada House.
Oh,
That
nice.
was really cool. I actually, when we were finished, I went to go to the Louvre by myself and like tour through the art museum and just kind of like, I don't know, soak in the beauty of these
Right.
paintings and sculptures and things like that for like 3 hours. Um, so yeah, in terms of my memories from Paris, it was like that was huge.
Yeah.
But then the biggest one was the opening ceremonies.
The boat
Being on the
ride.
boat was the coolest thing ever. Like, well, first actually, I met the artistic swimming team of Canada, so it
Okay.
was cool to like hear how their sport is and how actually super intense that sport is. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And so I got to talk with them for like an hour or two. And then when we got on the boat, it was like our team sat together. And then being on the boat, like going by all the different fans, all the different performances going on, it was just unreal. Like that's core memory for sure for me.
Yeah.
Like that
Excellent.
was unreal. Yeah.
Very cool. And now, what from a volleyball standpoint, what were some of the any games that stuck out? Like, you think of like, wow, that was amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I loved all three of them that we played. I don't know if there's any in particular that I was like, oh, this is so cool. I just remember like in each game, whenever I was playing, I'd like come off on the bench for a second as the middle serving, and I'd like look around and be like, holy shit, this is so cool. Like this is unreal, right?
Yeah.
Like kind of like take a moment and be like, damn, like I'm an Olympian. Like
Right.
that's crazy, yo. Like and so I would just kind of like take that second to be like, this is so cool. Go back in the court, feeling like happy, excited. And every game was really fun to, even though we lost, like it was really fun to
Yeah.
to play and be a part of it. So
Excellent. All right.
yeah.
And now, from a libero standpoint, I have a high school coach who asked, wanted me to ask a question about, what have been
Mhm.
some of the little things that have made you a better passer?
Mhm. I think so. This is kind of somewhat of a difficult question because I think it's very contextual. I think at different levels,
Mm-hmm.
people need different um, like technical advice.
Yep.
And I think each person needs different technical advice because maybe there's even things that I do where I'm like, I still need to work on this that maybe some 18-year-old kid is already doing well. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's like dependent on the person. I will say, um, fundamentally, like I think of Dan Lewis, one of the like technical coaches in Canada, who's obviously was like a libero for Canada himself, an amazing player, whatever. He kind of breaks it down into like different principles. So there's one that he loves, which is called the old man, which is kind of like when you're passing, you want to keep like your shoulders sort of over the ball. You're not like coming up on it,
Yeah.
unless you're like trying to save it or something. But even still, you want to, as much as possible, keep like everything over the ball and being able to control it. Um, One that Thomas, our coach Samuel, talks about with me, that I've had to like work through is like forcing the ball like to the net, like not just like throwing the platform, letting it hit you, but really like kind of like basically almost like taking the ball and like forcing it,
Yeah.
especially on like floats or easier spins. Like you really want to just like control and like dominate that ball.
Yeah.
Um, Other things I'm trying to think like I don't know. Dan talks about like platform angles. Like, there's so many things I
Right.
could
Yeah.
talk about. Yeah, it would really be dependent on
Yeah.
whatever the
It's
person needs.
funny that last tip you were talking about. I had Shina Joseph on, who's a Team Canada
Hmm.
person as well, and she was talking about how a Brazilian coach told her with that you make love to the ball, Shina. Make love to the ball as passing it.
That's what our coach says as well. Yeah, that's
so
exactly right.
yeah, so I thought that was a very funny answer she had. What is the skills you're probably most proud of that you've improved over the years? You think?
I think I'm really proud of a lot of like my like technical work on passing.
Yeah.
That's something that I mean, I feel like everyone and will always struggle with. So when you notice like an insight or something or some improvement that you make in passing, you're just like, wow, like that's I get it now. Like this makes more sense.
Yeah.
So that's been huge. On defense, the big one for me is really like kind of relinquishing control of needing to get every ball
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of like staying like relaxed as like 120-kilometer-hour ball comes at you from like a few meters away.
Right.
Just like staying relaxed and letting your like trust yourself like make the proper defensive moves.
Yeah.
I'm still working on that, but that's one that has come a long way, because I used to like always be so like amped up to get every ball, and then at that point you're missing like all the ones that are like coming within your vicinity that you can't pick up.
Yeah.
To make like one spectacular play like randomly. So yeah, those things. And then I think setting as well. Like I'm not particularly like, I don't know, super skilled with my hands. Like I'm not natural with it, but I think I actually set 1 year in college when we had injuries and stuff.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So I've gotten a lot better just like being able to out of system set. Here I'm the backup, or like if the setter takes the ball, I'm the setter. Like we're not doing six setting. And then I can like run an offense with like people on the team here,
nice.
even from the backcourt, things like that. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Something I've noticed, like, back when I played, there was no such thing as a scoop shot. And now you're seeing it's like open hand digs and everything like that. Is that something that you were using, back in your younger years, or something that you've seen over time has developed as a skill set you're using?
Yeah, I actually had to develop that. I remember developing that in my 4th year at Stanford when I'd played national team. I'd done well on the B team, the national B team. Done well, but one of the comments that was made was like, oh, solid passing, solid defense, whatever, but he needs more experience like picking up harder balls.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, totally fair. So I remember I just like that entire fall in college, I just worked on like keeping my hands out and being able to learn how to scoop balls like this, and like what it felt like, how to let your body just react instead of like needing to put 2 hands to pass it. Because at that point you kind of like contract and tense.
Yeah.
So it's definitely been a learning process in that respect, but I've definitely, I think for me, it's like once I get like an insight and realize like, oh, like this mind body connection, then it just like sticks. And I'm like, oh, I get it. Like then I can do it.
Yeah.
It takes a while to like force that connection to happen,
Yeah. Absolutely. Especially if you're just taught a certain way and now you got to break that. It's like, it's so used. It's a natural thing. You pass thousands and thousands of balls this way. Now it's like, oh, it's okay to open my hand and scoop it up.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Fun question for you. So, when Eric was on, him and Taylor have this thing. What's the toughest position in volleyball? So Eric has his opinion. Taylor Averill had his. I ask all my guests now, Justin, what is the toughest position in volleyball?
Toughest position? I have 2 answers for different reasons.
Yeah.
Middle blocker is extremely tough. I would hate to be a middle blocker. Like, it just like having to read the setter and like make these moves, and I don't know. And you have to always be jumping, like barely getting set. Like it's just a very difficult position for just very little reward. Whereas like left side, it's like, yeah, you need to do all the skills, but you also can do everything basically. And opposite, all you really do is just block your position and bang the ball as much as you want.
Yeah.
Not to say like, not to minimize that, but like those seem like easier positions to kind of like deal with and handle. And then setter is the hardest. Maybe not because of like the skill, like once you get setting good, like you're a good setter, but I think more it's like your entire offense is trusted through you. Yeah, you have to be the one, delivering the ball and making these plays. Yeah. And basically being like the strategic background of the team for your entire offense. And I think that in itself sort of carries a burden.
Yeah.
Not to say that it's like hardest to do. It's just like, I don't know, like it's just a lot on you. You know what I mean?
Mentally. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's pressure. It's a burden. It's needing to fulfill like the specific role.
Yeah.
But yeah, so to me, those 2 are the hardest.
All right. And I've had a bunch of liberos on the podcast so far, and I've only had one libero give the liberos the toughest, and that was Mason Briggs.
Oh, really?
And I understand his point. He says, as a libero, you have one skill, the pass. You can't have a bad off pass. That's it. You have no,
it's true.
As a hitter, you got your hitting, you got blocking, you got digging. As a libero, it's one thing. You've got to be right.
You have to be, it's like libero's hard because you can't really get net positive. You're always just like, if you're passing it, it has like, you're expected to like pass as well as you could. And if a ball comes in your general vicinity, you're expected to dig it up. Like anything less than that expectation is subpar, basically. And if you are fucking, that's like, you just can't have a bad day, basically, which is why libero kind of deals a different toll
Yeah.
in terms of like what's hardest. But
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. All
I
right.
agree with that for sure.
Okay. Now, away from the court, we've talked about some of the things you like to do. You like cooking, reading. What
Yeah.
is Justin's top 3 books?
Top 3 books. Oh, that's tough. I can give, I have a list on my phone right now, but I can give like, so Tuesdays with Maury. I don't know if you've heard of that,
No.
or it's a book about life, basically. It's amazing. Everyone should read it. It's very short. It's a story.
Yeah.
It's nice. Um, When Breath Becomes Air. It's a memoir, beautiful. It's a little sad because it's about a man dying, but it's beautiful. I'm trying to think. So those are like maybe memoir, fiction slash nothing, I guess like autobiographical.
Yeah.
I this is super nerdy, but I nerd out on like social tech stuff, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. So The Age of Surveillance Capitalism is like a very more academic
Okay.
book, but super, super interesting. It sort of explains like the economic logic of like how tech works in the 21st century. Very, very interesting. Like
Okay.
that book like unlocked a lot for me. But yeah, that's already
All
3.
right.
So
There we
I
go.
have so many others, but yeah.
Excellent. Well, hey, Justin, thank you for doing this. Really appreciate it. But one more question. Like with every past
Yep.
guest, I asked them to shout out somebody in your volleyball circle you think would have a good story to come on and share.
Hmm. Oh, that's a lot of people.
You can give 2 then. There's no rules.
Okay.
It's your
Yeah,
podcast.
I guess I'm thinking um Luke Herr has an interesting story. Sorry, national team setter.
Hmm.
He has an interesting story with like the national team. And Luke's a great guy, someone fun to talk to. Um, Nick Hogue, another, I mean, he has been the staple of Canada
Right.
volleyball and his father as well forever, basically.
Yeah.
Another great person to talk to.
All right.
So yeah, anyone from honestly the national team, yeah, they have interesting stories about their volleyball and
Excellent.
how they came to do it. So
All
yeah,
right. Well, hey, Justin, thank you so much for doing this. It was wonderful to meet you, and good luck for the rest of the season.
awesome. Thank you so much.